There are 100 different things that can go wrong on a pressure washing job, and in today's video, me and my partner Jacob are going to walk you through a bunch of things that were wrong on this property that you need to be keeping an eye out for before the job begins, so that way you don't damage the property or get blamed by the customer for something that you didn't do. Now, in this video, you guys are going to see us document everything we find using the 28-point inspection form within Quote IQ. And if you'd also like to use it, check out the first link in the comment section and the description. You can try any tier of Quote IQ right now for $1 at myquoteiq.com. Also, if you're looking to start up a pressure washing business, but you're not sure what chemicals to use, how to mix them, how to clean every surface on a residential job site, property protection, or how to set up your equipment, check out the How to Wash course. It'll be the second link in the comment section and the description. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the video.
All right, you guys, so typically we'd start from the front of the house, but Kale was washing over there first and foremost, so we're going to start from the back. So Jacob, you want to take us through some of the things we need to look for?
Yeah, so whenever we got here, we always do a walk around before we get started with anything, before we even get chemical in the pump, because if there's anything that's too damaged and we're unable to clean it, which has happened in the past, you know, you run into jobs where you'll show up and there's multiple surfaces that are damaged and you're going to have to leave those areas dirty, and it's not really worth messing with the house because we're not going to risk damaging anything over trying to clean something. So whenever we got here this morning, we did a complete walk around the house. We noticed that this glass door right here is very fogged up. I'm not sure exactly what caused that in the past, but too heavy of a chemical mix that is left on glass for too long can actually etch the windows. So we made sure to take a picture of that beforehand so the homeowner knows that that wasn't us that made it look like that. So we moved around the left side of the house, and then we noticed that they had a ripped screen right here. We don't take any screens off because of that reason right there. That screen was ripped. We took a picture of that and noted it in Quote IQ before we got started, along with the glass door over there. But again, we don't take these off because we have had this happen in the past. We used to try to take them off and we've ripped them and we've had to pay for them. So we just tell the customer, look, if you want us to clean behind them, you're going to have to remove them before we arrive to the job to actually be able to do it for you. This is an older home, so there is some areas like this that have some rotten spots where there's holes or wood piece missing, like at the bottom of this door right here, that we also noted in Quote IQ before we got started. And little things like that, it's only really these two areas as far as pieces that are missing with holes in them. So we're just careful around those areas, make sure we're not spraying direct water on those areas or chemical.
The other thing you guys want to be mindful of with regards to the screens as well, you want to avoid things that are just like timely with not a lot of reward on the other end. So technically we could come in and remove all these and clean these for the customer, but at the end of the day, like, the cleaning solution as well as the water is going to do a good enough job for us not to have to do that and waste a bunch of time with it.
Right, the risk outweighs the reward.
Exactly.
Whenever it comes to removing those. Like I said, we used to remove them in the past. It's just not worth it anymore because if they're dry rotted or something like that, then you go to pull them off and they're dry rotted, so they tear real easy. And it'll cause holes and different things like that, which could put you in a bind.
The next thing that we had to note was this light fixture right here. You want to talk about why those can be dangerous, Jacob?
Yeah, so typically floodlights are all right that are under the soffit like that if they have bulbs in them. We don't know if a switch is on for this or anything because there's no bulbs in it to be able to tell if it's actually on or not. So we don't spray any water really around that too much. If we do and it is dirty, the only thing that we'll do is we'll come back and wipe around it with chemical, and then come back and wipe like with water on a rag. We'll come back and wipe the chemical area off. That way we're able to clean that up also without having to actually spray on the light.
Next thing you guys want to be mindful for is obviously wiring that's out. This is an older home, so I'm sure when they went in to wire this, they just rewired it on the outside of the house. Typically that would be behind something, but something to be mindful of, right, Jacob?
Yeah, normally on these older homes, these cable wires like this, they'll be tucked under the soffit where the actual panels are that are on the house. This one, for some reason, the wires are cut and it's hanging on the side of the house, which is different than what we're used to seeing. But you don't really have to worry about those too much, getting water around them, because they are weatherproof whenever they install them. Typically the only wiring issues that we have to worry about is around the panels and different things like that, watching for holes or exposed wires or outlets that aren't covered. That's the biggest electrical things to pay attention to that we've had.
All right, so as we're moving around the house, you guys are going to kind of see, obviously this is an older home, you're going to have some paint that are coming off. Those are things you just want to note in the instance that, you know, the customer comes back and says, hey, well, you know, this wasn't right here. Well, maybe it was too dirty before to see, or whatever the case may be, so you just want to take note of any missing paint, right, Jacob?
Right, so if you can see that the paint's missing before you actually get started, if it's not too dirty, take a picture of it and note it. But if you notice that there is some flaky areas, but it's not completely gone, it's best to make the customer aware that, hey, we're not going to be able to control absolutely zero paint from flaking off of the fascia or the soffits, especially on these older homes. This home's probably been here for about 30 or 40 years, if I had to guess. So paint's going to hold up for a long time, but not 30 or 40 years. And whenever you come through, it doesn't matter if you spray it with a pressure washer or a water hose, some paint will flake off if it's already starting to flake.
And that's a perfect thing to include within your terms and conditions, you guys, because this is something that you want to make sure that you're covered on. So, you know, you can put in there, if there is flaking paint in the event that we do our wash, it may result in a little bit more of the paint flaking off, but we'll do our best to mitigate that. Just having that in terms and service can just, you know, save you on the back end if the customer were to ever come after you.
Yeah, and typically they don't have an issue with it. I mean, it's their home. They know it's flaking off a little bit, and a lot of times they're just getting it clean so they can repaint it anyway. So we've had customers in the past say blast it and knock as much paint off as you can. That way they don't have as much to sand, or they don't have to pay that extra service charge for the paint company to come through and actually clean it up for them.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, let's continue to move around. Obviously, Jacob, we got this garage door right here, very similar stuff. Looks like some of the wood and paint is kind of jacked up at the bottom of it. So
at the bottom right here, piece is knocked out of this corner right here. So little things like that. We took pictures of all that before we got started. I don't know if Justin's going to put those photos in his video or not, but I'll throw those in mine.
All right, Jacob, so we looked at the garage door. What do we got next?
So this front patio area, a lot of times, and mostly you don't have to worry about this on these older homes, but a lot of times the newer style homes, they'll have outlets in the actual ceilings that you have to pay attention to. And a lot of times they don't actually put covers on those just because they're going to be out of the weather because they're on the ceiling under a covered area. But they're not out of the water whenever they're requesting to get their home cleaned. So just something to be aware of whenever you're spraying. A lot of times we don't see them until we actually start spraying. So we got to stop, go grab some tape and put some tape on it to cover it. And then also ceiling fans is another big thing. We've actually heard a story where a guy that was just starting out in this industry, he was cleaning one of his friends' homes, and on the back patio they had 2 outdoor fans, regular fans, like we deal with every single day. And the next day after he got done, he didn't cover the fans or anything. The next day, the homeowner walked outside and the fan was on the ground. It actually fell out of the ceiling for some reason. I don't know if he had wood soffits or wood, on an older style home or vinyl on a newer style home. I don't know if it got in there and rotted the wood out and weakened the wood up or what, but yeah, the next day he walked outside and one of his fans was laying on the ground. So we don't get too close to fans, especially like in the top area where the wires and stuff are. We kind of reach up and spray around them with the ball valve around the blades and stuff, and we don't actually hit directly on the blade. We'll just stay around those to where we don't risk bending any blades or getting any water up in the fan or in the electrical area of the fan.
Other thing to always keep in mind on these properties is there a doorbell camera? Obviously, no doorbell camera on this one. It looks like they might have had one but took it out because typically they'll have some kind of security. Also, like Jacob said, always be mindful for outlets up top, but you always kind of want to check just the outlets that they have, because if they don't have a good seal on them, you could get water behind there. And so outlets are a big issue. We've had an issue before where we've got water in one of these outlets and then it'll pop a breaker and then you got to call an electrician out. So it's just good to double check before the job begins.
Yeah. A lot of times they're hooked up on what's called a GFCI to where it trips the breaker instead of actually catching on fire, but not on every home, so we're always cautious of it. Make sure the covers are put up right, because those covers do have a drain in the bottom of them in case they do get water in them or something like that, and it needs to drain out of the bottom. That way that water has somewhere to go and it's not just sitting on the electrical outlet. If it's turned upside down and that drain is actually at the top, then water's going to run down into the outlet and then it won't have a way to drain out. We've ran into that issue in the past also. But we recovered because it had a cover on the outlet. Like we said, mentioned in that last house wash walk around we did, we recovered, it had a cover on it, so wasn't really much the homeowner could do. We cleaned up, it left a burn spot on the homeowner's home. We cleaned that up and she said, don't worry about it, I'm gonna get my son out here to fix it. And we actually just did our house like 2 weeks ago again. So
there you go. One of the last pieces that really on this property is this fascia up here. It's just jacked up, so we made sure we took a video of that. And then the other thing that we didn't talk about maybe in the last video was just kind of taking a picture of the current state of the plants. If the customer calls us and said, hey, you killed our plants, it's good for us to at least have a picture of what they look like before, so we can kind of reference and say, well, no, we didn't, they were dead before. Obviously, as you guys can see, these look like they're newly planted. So just something to be mindful of. We are using bleach, and we just want to make sure we keep the vegetation wet as well.
Right, that's a good point, because we've had that happen in the past also. And we didn't take a picture of the plants beforehand. And the customer actually, we went back out to the job and we were like, no, they were already like that because the whole plant was dead. Normally, whenever you get bleach on them, if it's dripping to the plants, it'll leave a burn spot instead of killing the entire plant if it's not too much chemical that got into the root system of the plant.
Right. So yeah, it's always good. That's another good reason why we film these jobs, is just because, you know, if we do miss anything or we forget anything on our pre-inspection walk around, then usually the film will kind of back us up as well to be like, hey, this was the case.
One more thing to be mindful of is whenever you spray in the soffits and on like the side of the house, these vents up here, it's not made for water to shoot up into them because that just leads straight to the attic. So if water gets in there, then it's potentially putting water in the house, which we don't want because it's all plywood and wood up there that's probably not treated because it is inside. So if it gets wet, then it eventually will rot out if it gets too wet. So just something to think about. Don't spray directly on that vent. We just kind of hit them real quick to where if water does get in it, it may be just a little bit of mist, but it's not like we hold the water directly under the vent to be soaking the inside of the home.
You guys, that was pretty much the whole inspection. We'll walk around this side just to kind of take a little glimpse at it, but super important, you guys document all these things on the property. Another thing is, while you're documenting, you could be looking for upsells. Roof blow-offs are a good upsell. You guys can see you got some leaf collection there. Roof wash, good upsell. Concrete cleaning, good upsell. We actually shot him a text over and said, hey, we can knock out the concrete for you while we're here. So we'll see what he says about that. If you guys made it this far in the video, comment down below inspection, and I'll hashtag you a real one. But my name is Justin. This is Forever Self-Employed, and until next time, hustle hard, get that money, baby.
Word of the day, upsell.
Peace.